right, we are in December and it is time to talk about my planner and journal lineup for 2025. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible. It's probably going to be chatty as these videos tend to go. So grab yourself a tea or coffee or your favorite beverage of choice, a snack, and something to keep you company while we sit down and chat about our favorite topic, planners and journals, and all the fun books that we use to do those things with. My drink of choice right now is just some hot water, still trying to keep up that water intake. And my snack of choice are these little chocolate biscuits that we got from Japan. They are so good. They come in all these different flavors. This one is the Alfort mini chocolate, and it's just a kind of butter biscuit with some milk chocolate. And we brought back a few other flavor varieties, like there's a green tea one, there's a white chocolate one with a sable biscuit. They're really good. I love them. So we're slowly working our way through them, and today I am working through these mini chocolate ones. Okay, I've got two stacks in front of me, and I've categorized them into planning and journaling or memory keeping. I do also have a bonus stack over here that I'm not going to spend too much time talking about, but all of these are what I would kind of consider special interest in like a memory keeping category. And they aren't really tied to the year. They're more so tied to really specific events. So I'll go over these more in another video if you are interested. Really briefly, this is my general memory keeper. So this is where I kind of scrapbook and keep all the random bits of ephemera that I collect throughout the year. And as soon as I finish an insert, I just pop in a new one and I continue. So there's no timeline. This one is one of my newest Traveler's Notebook covers, and I'm using this to work on my memory keeping for my recent Japan trip. So when these two are done, I expect this will fluff up quite a bit once I start working on it, and I will continue to use this for travels. And then this is my pen and ink log, which is my TN that I use for logging the pens and inks that I use. And again, this is not tied to a certain year. It's just something that I continuously update. These, however, are more tied to the year itself. I'll start with the memory keeping side because I have spoken about this Traveler's Notebook quite a bit in my last few videos. So it's a bit of a review and it'll take less time, and then we'll go into the planning. This is a Hobonichi 5-year techo in the A5 size, and heading into 2025 will be my 3rd year in this book. It is currently housed in a Hobonichi natural leather cover. This is a really thick book, and I try to keep it as lean as possible because I didn't want it to bulk up too much. And you can see the cover actually has like quite a bit of room. You can actually see it is developing a little bit of a patina, so this is more similar to what it looked like, and it is slowly developing, but this doesn't really leave my home, so it's taking a little bit of time to patina. It's actually quite light on the back. It has a pen loop. I use this to summarize key highlights or even lowlights of my life. And the main thing that I want to do here is just have a general idea of how my life is evolving over 5 years. So I think when I first got this, I thought it was going to be more of like a gratitude log, but it's kind of evolved into whatever I feel like putting in here. So sometimes I recap special events. The first year was probably the hardest to do because it was blank, but by the second year, it was so fun to open up the book, and as I was writing what was going on for that day, I had another year to look back on. So I'm really excited to continue that in 2025, where I'll have 2 years to look back on as I'm updating this. And I like how small the spaces are to write an entry because I'm not really an everyday journaler as much as I sometimes wish I were. This is a lot more sustainable to me because I usually update this on a weekly basis. So, usually on Sunday, I will sit down and I will review my other books to see what was going on in that week, and then I will kind of catch up on a week's worth of entries. In an ideal world, I would update this every day, but I haven't been able to make a habit of that, and I'm okay with a weekly update because this book is full and I haven't really missed a day since I started using this book. So, this has been a very sustainable thing for me. And I will say it is a little bit of a larger book. And when I was originally looking into getting a 5-year, I actually wanted to get the A6 size, but they were completely sold out. And I think the only way I could have gotten an A6 size was if I had paid significantly more on eBay. So this is using that Tomoe River paper before they switched everything over to Sanzin, and that is why I started on a random year, 2023, and I'm really happy that I have this book because this paper is glorious and we all know that it is no longer in production. So that's my 5-year. Okay, next up we have my memory keeping and my, I guess, long form journaling, which is currently being housed in my traveler's notebook cover. Okay, so the first insert here, I will be decorating this at some point, but this is the weekly vertical traveler's notebook insert. And I plan to use this for memory keeping. So similar to the 5-year, while I'm not so much of an everyday journaler, I'm much more comfortable with a weekly memory keeping log type of situation. I used to do weekly memory keeping in my cousin, and I really liked how that looked. And since I'm using my cousin for something else now, I wanted to have a place where I could just have fun with stickers and photographs and whatever I want to stick in here for the week. And because it is a relatively thinner insert, even if this bulks up, it's not going to be unmanageable. So that's the first insert. The second insert, and it's really cool to see how much this is bulking up now because I've also been having fun putting stickers in here. But this is just a blank grid insert that I'm using for long form journaling. So it's more so a place for me to process thoughts and feelings and whatever I need to process. This is a Good Impressions cream 52 GSM standard insert, and it has 3.7 millimeter grid, which is a request that I made when I made my order, and they're really good about customizing your order. So I really love this. I suspect this is pre-Sanzin paper, so I think that's why it's such a joy to write on. And thanks to my recent trip to Japan, when I'm finished this insert, which I think will probably happen in another month or so, I have a few other inserts that I'm really excited to break into. So I will just be swapping this out when I finish writing in it. And then the last thing here is just my sticker release paper insert. And this is what I will use to add stickers to these two inserts because I don't want to hold myself back. I want to have fun and kind of log my memories. And then also I like to, as you can see here, I like to kind of decorate my pages because I can. So that is my journaling memory keeping. So next up, we are going to move into my planning stack. So these are currently not in their covers because I'm planning on just reusing the covers that I am currently using for 2024. I'll give you a quick overview of what we have here. Let's see if I can make sure that they're all in camera. Okay. This is going to be my planning stack, and I know this looks like a lot of books, but they all have a pretty specific purpose, and it's not unlike what I'm doing this year, and I have found it to be very manageable. So in a nutshell, This is my daily planner, my catch-all. This is what I use every day for all of my tasks and just to keep me on track. This is my health and wellness planner. This is what I'm calling my meal planner and general home catch-all. It is going to be a shared planner that I share with my partner. And then this is going to be my workbook. So we'll just go one by one. I think maybe it might be easiest to show you how I'm planning on using this by going through my current one, because I'm really going to be using it in the same way. So this is the current cover that I'm using for my A6. I will be reusing this for next year. It is an A6 leather portfolio that is a collaboration between the Superior Labor and Wonder Pens. I clearly have an obsession with the Superior Labor and Wonder Pens, and they created this limited run of leather portfolios sometime this year, and I did go ahead and get one for myself. Initially, I wasn't sure what I was going to use it for, but it has turned out to be quite perfect for my A6. So in the front cover, I just have a sticker release passport size insert, and I just use that for any stickers that I want to use for my planner. And it is minimal in terms of decoration, but occasionally I like to add a little bit of decor. And then on the inside, I have the main techo in a clear Midori cover. And then there's a flap here, I don't know if you can see that, and that is where I put my weekly supplement. So the way I use my weekly supplement, let me just grab a page that is appropriately censored. Okay, so this is kind of how I'm using my weekly supplement. Basically, I use it to log meetings that I have, and I have a specific color code that I'm just going to bring into 2025 with me. And then occasionally I will also sometimes write down big events, especially on the weekends where I don't do a lot of work. And I also log things like runs and strength training. So mainly this is kind of like my time blocking situation. And as you can see, sometimes I go ahead and I add some decor when I feel like it. And I just find this really helpful because it's something that I can kind of prop up on my desk and have open all the time so that I always know what's going on that week. So this is a vital part of my planning process. So I will be using the 2025 in the exact same way. Hasn't really bulked up too much, maybe a bit more on the bottom. So that's the weekly supplement. And then for the original, last year, or 2024, I got the Japanese version, and for 2025, I got the English version. So that is the main difference. So that means now I can actually read the quotes on the bottom, which I actually enjoy. And in terms of how I'll be using it, okay, I think I can show this page. So in terms of how I'm using it, it's mainly for keeping track of tasks. So I always track the meetings that I have for the day and then the to-do list. And this just keeps me on track because I kind of do the bullet journal style where I write down what I need to do, and whatever doesn't get done, I just keep repeating it until I can check it off. And then mainly I use this for taking notes or meeting notes for the week. So if I'm at a bank appointment or I'm maybe at a doctor's office, this is where I'll just jot down things that I need to remember. When I have time, I occasionally will do a little bit of micro journaling just to fill out the space. And I often do ink thoughts because whenever I ink up a new pen, I like to kind of test it out and I like to document that in here. Another example is I bring this with me everywhere because it's so portable. And so I went to the Pelican Hub and I tried a bunch of pens and I did a bunch of pen tests in here. And the really fun thing was I went to Scriptus in October with Tiffany from Talksmot. And while we were sitting at a table in the Toronto Reference Library, somebody that I had met at the Pelican Hub came up to me and we reconnected. And it was really fun because I was able to flip to this page because this is around the time of the Pelican Hub. And I was able to recall his name and also thank him for letting me test all of his pens. So I really consider this to be like my second brain. And initially, I was really hesitant to downsize into this A6 because I was doing all of this in my cousin, and I thought that it was going to be really hard to have, you know, my weekly separated and a much smaller space. But when I'm just focusing on tasks, I don't actually need that much space. I find more often than not, I have a lot of room on the side here for other things. Whereas when I was trying to keep track of my to-do list in the vertical weekly, it just didn't work. It was a little too hard to do the time blocking and the to-do list in the weekly, and on the daily pages, I was actually using those pages for work-related notes, which I'll talk about later. So this system is working so well for me. I'm going to use this in the same way, and I might do a more in-depth video of this later this month, but I don't really do a lot of setup. So if anything, I might talk a little bit about how I'm using the sections, but for the most part, it's really just going to be a rinse and repeat for my daily catch-all planner. Next up, we have my health and wellness planner. And let me grab my health and wellness for this year. Okay, so this book, I will say, has become one of my most important books of 2024. I am so pleased with how integral this has become, and I know I probably could find a way to fit a lot of this tracking into my everyday catch-all, but I think having it in a separate book has really helped me because I use this as a place to check in with myself on how I'm doing as I start my day. And then at the end of the day, I usually open this up again and I kind of fill out the rest of it. I will do a more in-depth flip through in a different video because otherwise this video would get too long. But a lot of what I'm doing in here, I'm going to be repeating in here. I have made some changes, mainly to do with making this a little more tailored to being helpful for monitoring my health. I think before it was more of a passive, I'm just going to use this to kind of track things. And now I'm really happy with the changes I've made because I've been able to take things a step further and turn it into a tracker that will really help me increase my overall self-awareness for how I'm doing health-wise, and is going to help me advocate for myself when I'm in doctor's meetings or things like that. So this is really one of my favorite books out of my entire system, and I'm really excited to use this beautiful wallpaper weeks to house that in. I just love this week so much, and I'm just really excited to be able to look at this every day and in the future be able to flip through this and reference all of my health information. So this is such a powerful book, and I really love it. I'm not going to do too much of a flip through, but I have tons of videos on this because it's probably the book that I talk about the most out of all my Hobonichis. And I'm really excited to continue on with the health and wellness tracker with some improvements for next year. Okay, next up we have my meal planner. I don't have my meal planner actually here with me. Let me go grab it. This is the Hobonichi Weeks Pistachio in the mega size. So as you can see, it is quite a bit bigger than the standard weeks. And I'm going to mainly use this in the same way that I used my meal planning book for this year. At one point, I thought about maybe getting rid of this book and integrating meal planning into one of my other books, but this lives in the kitchen and it is kind of a shared book, and I actually really like that, Especially in the last few weeks, I was feeling very uninspired with cooking, and I was starting to really dread meal planning because I guess I was kind of getting bored of the meals that we were making. So I was able to make use of things like my 100 list, where I list out all the different meals that we have cooked in the past and we know we like, and they're relatively easy to make. And I hadn't referenced this list in a while because I had gotten into such a routine of kind of cycling through very similar meals. So this really was helpful for me in the last few weeks. And I think because of that, I do want to continue it into next year because I know there are going to be moments where I feel really uninspired and it feels like a chore and I have very low motivation. And this is exactly why I have it separate in a book like this, because I have all these moments in the book where I set myself up for success by having things like this to refer to when I know I'm going to need it, even if it's not something that I need all the time, if that makes sense. So, for example, in the summer, I didn't really reference this at all because we just got into this habit of having a lot of barbecues and then having like really simple meals. Once we got back from Japan, I don't know if it was just general jet lag, whatever it was, but I was really dragging my feet with meal planning. So I flipped to my 100 page and we ended up picking a few meals in here that I had actually forgotten about. And last week was delicious. We had such a wonderful week. It felt like originally this book was kind of like training wheels to build a habit of, being able to ride a bike without training wheels. But now I think it's still important for maintenance. So I am going to continue with using this for that purpose. And I found it to be really helpful. But because this mega is so big, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to use this book for other shared task or family related kind of things. So I had jotted down a couple of things that I think we'll end up using this book for. So last year I had a home and garden hobonichi that was a complete fail and we didn't really do anything with it. And I think this year it's going to be a lot easier to just have the one book instead of when I want to do meal planning, I grab this book. When I want to do house things, I grab another book. I think it's going to be better to have it all in one. We're going to use it for meal planning, home chores. So we're going to try again. I know I'm not good at being consistent with tracking all of those things. I'm going to use a Lindsay Scribbles style rolling weekly here for chores. So that's what I'm thinking about doing for this page. And then we do want to put a little more effort into our humble patio garden. So I think the notes pages are going to be really good for helping me write down things that I need to remember, because part of the reason why gardening is so hard for me is because it feels like there's so many things that have to happen in a specific order. And then I just put family things here. Like last year, I logged TV shows and movies that we watched in here in the notes pages, but I'm actually going to put those in this book because I have enough pages to not only log the movies and the TV shows that we watch together, but also journal a little bit about my thoughts on them. Because what I found was when I logged a movie, I would just log the title and the date we watched it. Looking back on that list, I can't really remember some of the movies that we watched. So that's probably because usually when we're watching a movie at home, I'm also puttering around in one of my journals. But I did want to have a space to maybe process a little more about the things that we're consuming together. And because it's something that we do together, I thought it would be a nice idea to have a space where we could both share our thoughts. So this is a place where we can kind of document what we both thought of it. So if there's a TV show that we were divided on, we can capture that here. And the intention really is to, I guess, improve my recollection of things, because it's so easy to consume a lot of things. And for me, if it's not documented, it's like it's gone from my brain. So I think we have plenty of pages to experiment with all of those things. and I'm really excited to see how this evolves over 2025. So that's this one. Last but not least, we have the hobonichicousin, and I am going to be using it very similarly to how I'm using it this year. And that is, I made some notes because I didn't want to forget. Basically, I'm planning on using this as a workbook. So anything related to work, I guess, is going to go in here. And the reason why I wanted to use a cousin over an A5 blank notebook is because I like the structure that the cousin provides, because it helps me recall things a bit better when I can use this in addition to the dailies, if that makes sense. So I'll be using it for professional development. So I am required to take a certain number of course credits every year as part of my professional development. So when I take courses, this is where I can actually note down when I take the course, how many hours that course was, how many credits, and any notes from actually taking the course. Another thing is business development marketing. So for one of my businesses, I'm trying to develop a website. So I'll be using this to help me set that up and break things down into manageable tasks. Also, meeting outlines or plans. So any meetings that I have, if I want to note down some of the things that I want to discuss in that meeting, as long as it's non-confidential information. Also, general supervision notes, and then research notes. So any type of research I do, whether it is for my personal business or whether it is for YouTube, this is a place where I can take notes, because for me, I need to take notes on things for me to absorb them. So that's exactly how I've been using this book. So here's an example of like a notes page where I read an article around ADHD symptoms, entrepreneurial passion, and entrepreneurial performance. And I used some of these learnings in a previous video. So this is the kind of stuff that it's kind of time sensitive, if that makes sense. But I really like the cousin because I can use the index pages to help me find this again if I ever need to. And then if it's really that important, I can log it in a different blank notebook that I've been using as like a personal textbook. And that's where I have more reference information that I anticipate I might be referencing time and time again. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's almost like temporary notes that are specific to the year. And then if it's something that I consider to be timeless or evergreen, I will transport that over to a different notebook. So that's how I'm going to be using the cousin. At least that's my plan for now. This is one of my most important books. It stays on my desk, so it's definitely not portable, but it has so much rich information for this year. And even though it's not very pretty and it's not decorated, I use this on a daily basis, and I really like this system. So that is my 2025 planning lineup. I was concerned, of course, about the paper situation because I have heard, just like everyone else, that the paper quality is variable, and because of that, I did do a pen test in the back of all of these, and I will just show you the results. Maybe it was just the pens that I happened to have inked up for this test. None of them really bled through. This one you can see, I guess, this top one, almost some bleed through, but it's not too bad. And then here's the A6. And I don't know if maybe it's because all of these are fine or extra fine nibs, which is what I normally use anyway with my fountain pens. So for the most part, I didn't get a lot of bleed through. So my Pistachio Weeks, my A6, and my cousin, they all seem to be pretty good. And these are the pens that I'm likely going to use in these books, so I felt pretty good about that. The one thing that I did notice, and I can live with it, the Beautiful Weeks, I didn't get any bleed through, but I did notice that this pen wrote a lot more broad than some of my other Hobonichi, so I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, this is the exact same pen, same ink, but everything came out a lot more broad in here. So I didn't love that because Platinum Carbon Black is my most used ink because it is waterproof and I can highlight over it. So I need to be able to use this pen, and I specifically got the Platinum 3776 for this ink because I was having trouble with this ink in my Pilot vanishing points. So I am kind of disappointed because I really love my thin lines. It helps me write really small in these boxes, and I was surprised that it came out a lot broader than in this one, and I didn't experience that as much in these two. So I don't know if you can see that. I didn't experience it as much. Having said that, I don't think this is a deal breaker for me. If anything, I might try Platinum Carbon Black again in one of my Pilot vanishing points now that I have a little more experience with maintenance. Maybe there was an issue in how I was using it before where I wasn't cleaning my pen out properly. I'm not too sure. Or I might try a different waterproof black ink. Let me see. I also did a test page here. Yeah, so you can see on this page there is a little bit of bleed through, and everything came out a lot more broad with this pen and ink combo. So I am disappointed in that, but I'm still going to use this book anyway. And if at some point it becomes really problematic, then I will update you. All right, so that is my 2025 planner and journal lineup for next year. I'd love to know where you are in your planning and journaling process. Are you someone who has it all figured out, or are you still figuring things out? Or does the concept of having a lineup in general seem really foreign to you? Because I've always been a multiple books person, but I've never thought about it as a system, and I've never thought about it as a lineup until I started making YouTube videos. So I think it's a really good way to have a holistic view of everything that you're reaching for. And I totally understand that this can seem like a lot, but for me, what I found helpful was to focus on the why of what I'm using these for and to prioritize function over everything else. And I know that's not going to work for everybody, but really understanding my usage patterns, what I know is going to work for me and what I know is unrealistic for me, and then trying not to second guess myself too much once I've committed to it. So that is everything that I have for you today. If you're still here, thank you so much for sticking around and being here with me today. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video. Bye.